BC ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ 19 ਨੂੰ ਸੂਬੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਪੈਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਮੁੱਖ ਤਿੰਨ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਨੇ BC NDP, BC ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਤੇ BC ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਨਾਲ BC ਗ੍ਰੀਨਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਦੌੜ ਜਾਰੀ ਹੈ। ਲੀਡਰਸ ਗਲੀ ਗਲੀ ਮੁਹੱਲੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ BC ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਕੇਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ ਨੇ, ਜੋ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ BC ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਾਮ ਬਦਲ ਕੇ ਹੁਣ BC ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਰੱਖ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ। ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ BC ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਕੰਸਰਨਸ ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਵੀ, ਆਮ ਸਥਾਨਕ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ BC ਇੱਕ ਫਾਸਟੈਸਟ ਗਰੋਇੰਗ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ। ਪਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੰਮੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਜਿਉਂ ਦੇ ਤਿਉਂ ਹੀ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਸਲਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਕੇਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਕੇਵਿਨ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ TV, ਨਾਈਸ ਟੂ ਹੈਵ ਯੂ ਹੇਅਰ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਜੌਨ ਬੈਸਟ। Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure meeting you, sir. Pleasure. How's it going? The election day is coming faster and faster, close to the day.
That's right.
How's everything going?
Well, it gets busier and busier as you get closer to an election. But, you know, I've fought many elections in the past.
Yeah.
We're here in Cloverdale, so I represented Cloverdale for 13 years.
Yeah, you can call it you're like back home, right?
That's right. I am back home. Absolutely. This is a very important community for me, Surrey, because not only did I represent Surrey and Cloverdale for 13 years, but both my daughters were born here, one at Surrey Memorial Hospital and one at Peace Arch Hospital. My wife and her family were raised in Surrey on Panorama Ridge, and she went to Tamanawas Secondary School and then later became a teacher and taught at Tamanawas Secondary. So lots of deep roots in Surrey.
So you're very well connected here.
Yes.
You know the issues.
I know the issues very well.
Pretty well. Like irrespective of their like the Punjabi community issues. So you have been like with them for several years now. Let's talk about something from the old days when it was, I think, 1999 when you were the first nominator from BC Liberals, right?
That's
from
right.
this here. So how far you think you have came now?
Well, it was incredible. It brings back a lot of memories being in Cloverdale, especially at an earlier event, which was at the Clayton Golf Club there, where I started doing a lot of my initial meetings when I was trying to become the nominated candidate. And I did become the nominated candidate in 1999, and in 2001 won election as an MLA from Surrey Cloverdale. And, you know, I was very proud of the 13 years that I was in government. I was a minister responsible for health. I was a health minister for a couple of years. I was minister of transportation, where we got lots of big things done, like widening 176th Street to 4 lanes, widening number 10 highway to 4 lanes. When I was minister of health, we built the beautiful hospital that we've got at Surrey Memorial. I remember announcing it in 2009 and saying we'll get it built for $500 million. And 4 years later, opening the hospital on schedule and on budget, which is very different from what we're seeing today. And when we built the $250 million Jimmy Pattison outpatient building, that was another exciting thing. And, you know, I just, as finance minister, I always thought about Surrey too, as the fastest growing community, making sure that we're building those schools and investing in, you know, the new Clayton Secondary School, which was new when I was getting it built back as an MLA. So I always think back and I've got all these memories of Surrey. Good. And the good things that happened here.
Oh, it's amazing to know how well you're connected to Surrey. But the Surrey people, they're facing big issues nowadays.
Yes.
The one you just mentioned about the hospital, the other one's the schools, the transportation issues, the roads. The community is growing, but not the infrastructure.
Yeah.
We need more of it. All the parties have been promising, but still it's not being made. Hospital health is the biggest concern right now people are facing. They're paying pretty much their taxes. They're not getting back what they expect from the governments. But still, before going to all these issues one by one, first thing, the name change. Yes. The party, the BC Liberals, the old BC Liberals now becoming BC United. Many people thinking this is a new party. But still, even within the community, many people are confused with the names.
Yes.
How do you see this change? You have been hearing this question all the time. We are meeting at the press conferences. This question is the first one being asked by the journalist. Still, you think people didn't recognize BC United as BC Liberals, or still they have this misunderstanding?
Well, there is some misunderstanding for sure, but I think most people are starting to become aware now that BC United is just the BC Liberals. It's the same party, just a different name. And it's the party of Gordon Campbell, the former premier, and Christy Clark, the former premier. And it's a party that has a very proud track record of getting things done, not just for Surrey, but for the province of British Columbia. And I like the word united because what we're trying to do is unite people together from all different backgrounds, no matter where they were born or what religion or what God they pray to. The fact that working together united, we can always get better solutions. And I think that the most important thing I hear from people is just a frustration that right now in British Columbia, nothing seems to be working. You know, housing is too expensive, crime is too high, the drug crisis has gotten very serious. People are concerned about what the NDP government's trying to teach our kids in the education system. There's all of these problems, and we need solutions, not just promises, solutions. So I do think that that's something that I hear more and more. And as we get closer to the election, as I mentioned earlier, that I think that what you will see is as people pay attention, they'll look around and they'll say, okay, BC Conservative Party, that's not the federal Conservative Party, that's a separate party. And BC United, that's the BC Liberals, Gordon Campbell, Christy Clark, Kevin Falcon. Okay, they are the coalition party. They're the ones that helped, build British Columbia. And I think that as people realize those things, that I think you'll see the results.
So you think with the time pass coming close to the elections, people are going to realize this?
Yes, when they start paying attention.
When they start.
Right now no one's paying attention, honestly, very much. I mean, they're concerned, they're worried about high housing prices, they're worried about their kids having to leave
so
British
many
Columbia.
other issues they're dealing with.
Yes.
The daily hustles, the daily,
Absolutely.
the wages, the pays, interest, hike in the fuel prices, everything they're dealing with right now.
Absolutely, and it's hard. It worries me a lot, actually, because, there was a poll done by one of the major accounting firms, MNP, and they said that 50% of families in British Columbia are less than $200 a month away from not being able to meet their family budgets. So that's like a lot of people are really struggling financially.
Kevin, what made this name change for the party? What was the major concern behind this name change?
Well, in part, it was because sometimes our BC Liberal, although we were a separate party, not connected to any federal party,
yes.
it did create a lot of confusion. Okay. So sometimes people assumed, we're part of the federal Liberal Party, but we really weren't. We're an independent party.
So you think the declining graph of the federal Liberal, that's what made you guys change the...
No, I don't think so, because, sometimes it would be a good thing having the Liberal name, sometimes it was a bad thing, but really at the end of the day, the membership of the party wanted to have a name that united everyone together. If you go way back in BC history, you'll remember there was a party called the Social Credit Party, led by Bill Bennett, a great premier of this province. And social credit didn't really mean anything, but it was an important vehicle that people that vote federal Liberal or federal Conservative or even frustrated NDP people federally, provincially could come together under social credit. And then later under BC Liberals and now under BC United and vote against the NDP. Okay. So we have supporters that are Liberals, we have supporters that are Conservatives, we have disaffected NDPers.
Like the federally they're supporting these parties, and you think provincially they are supporting...
They can support us. They can feel comfortable supporting us. Yeah.
Were you personally a big supporter of this name change?
What I said to the party is that I would support whatever the party decided to do. Okay. But I do support the name change. I actually do think that at the end of the day, this will be proven to be a good thing.
Okay. Yeah. So what right now scenario, the people seeing the graphs or the polls, so they're assuming that the change of the name is what BC United is suffering right now. Do you think the same?
I think it's partly. It is confusion for sure, because what you're seeing in the polls is actually very understandable. Some people aren't sure who BC United is, and they see Conservative and they're thinking Pierre Poilievre, right? Conservative, Pierre Poilievre, not realizing that it's a different party completely.
Okay. So you think they're getting the name advantage?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're getting the name advantage, but that will change as we get closer to the election. And as people get closer to the election and they realize, okay, BC United is the BC Liberal Party. Okay, I understand. And Kevin Falcon is the former Minister of Transportation who built the Port Mann Bridge, who built the South Fraser Perimeter Road, who widened 176th Street and Number 10 Highway. He's somebody that gets things done. I think that'll make a big difference. And that BC United has 25 opposition MLAs from every part of this province that are ready to govern on day one. And that's very important to remember, because, being a party ready for government means you have to have good quality candidates. For example, here in this riding of Surrey Cloverdale, we've got a doctor from Surrey Memorial Hospital who's running. Dr. Claudine Storness-Bliss. And she's very well known, very high profile. And she's a young woman. She's the head of the obstetrics department. And she is running for us because she's so concerned about the state of healthcare at the Surrey Memorial Hospital. So those are the kind of really good candidates. Puneet Sander is another one in Surrey Serpentine, a new riding, a lawyer, a woman, very successful. She'll be a great contributor.
Mr. Kevin, we were talking about this party name change and the graph that's making the difference. People are thinking like the polls, so different polls showing different numbers. How do you see all these polls? Somewhere it's showing BC United number 2nd, somewhere it's showing number 3. So do you think that makes a difference?
Well, it does. It sometimes makes a difference among people that think, oh gosh, is that something we should worry about? But I remember in 2013, in that election, although I wasn't a candidate because I had retired from public life, I remember it was 2 weeks before the election campaign started. So 2 weeks before the 28-day campaign, and the BC Liberals, now BC United, were down 22 points below the NDP. And the media and all the people that, the pundits said, oh, it's NDP win for sure. No problem. NDP are going to win. But what happened? BC Liberals won a majority, right? Because the campaign matters. So, I look at the polls right now. Honestly, I don't spend much time worrying about the polls, and I'll tell you why. A recent candidate that we just nominated in Abbotsford, for example, Dave Sidhu. When Dave ran for council, the polls showed that he was going to be number 11. He topped the polls. Okay, so polls are very inaccurate because it's hard to poll people nowadays because they don't answer their phones, especially in the Chinese Canadian community, the South Asian community, the Filipino community. So I don't worry about the polls. The polls that matter the most are election day poll.
Most of the BC NDP supporters or the leaders, they say that there's going to be a vote split between BC United and BC Conservative, and they're going to get the benefit for that. Do you think it's going to happen like that?
That could happen. But what usually happens between elections is that the BC Conservatives do better between elections because of voter confusion. But as we get closer to the election and people start to realize, wait a minute, I don't believe these people are ready for prime time. And, maybe it's the quality of their candidates aren't very good. You saw they had to get rid of another candidate just the other week, some person that thought that, taking COVID shots turned you into magnets and things like that. So I think that can cause them problems. We're very careful about the candidates that run for us. Many of their candidates are people that we rejected, that we didn't want as candidates, and they then go and run for the BC Conservatives. So I do think the quality of candidates and more importantly, what solutions? Slogans are no good. Solutions are what important. So that when the BC Conservatives say we're going to axe the carbon tax, they can't axe the carbon tax. They have no ability to axe the carbon tax. Because there's a federal carbon tax. So it would be like me saying I'm going to get rid of the GST. I can't do that.
But they're saying it because the federal Conservatives are saying it.
Yes, but what the difference is, they're not connected to the federal Conservative. But I have said, and I've talked to Pierre Poilievre about this. I talk to Pierre regularly, and I said to Pierre,
oh, do you?
Yeah, oh yeah. And I said to Pierre, and I said this publicly, if the federal government changes and Pierre Poilievre follows through on his commitment to eliminate the carbon tax, which I believe he will, then our carbon tax is gone too. But we cannot get rid of it before that. It has to change federally before we can get rid of ours. Otherwise, we'd be stupid. We'd get rid of ours and we'd get stuck with the federal one. So that's the difference.
And congratulations about your last week rally ready to go. Marriott in downtown Vancouver.
Yes.
That was a good show.
Thank you. It was very good. I was very excited. We had over 400 people there, very excited. And it was a weekend of training our candidates and their campaign managers ready for the election. Because, elections come down to a lot of things. You've got to have ability to raise money. You've got to have very good candidates. You've got to have people in 93 ridings that know how to run campaigns. And the advantage that we have, that's why the polls, I don't spend much time worrying about polls, because we've got workers and we've got volunteers in every riding across the province, people that every election for 25 years have come out and worked for us and want to help us get elected because we have a track record of getting things done.
How do you see the recent BC NDP's budget? What big mistake you think, the biggest mistake they made?
I think this is one of the worst budgets I've seen, and I'll tell you why. It's because, for one thing, they've more than doubled the provincial debt in 7 years to over $100 billion. Over the next 3 years, they're going to add another $64 billion of debt. And the deficit, which is how much they're spending compared to what they take in, is going to be almost $8 billion deficit. which is the largest in the history of British Columbia.
Yeah.
And the part that's so scary is with all that debt and that huge deficit, we're seeing the worst healthcare system we've ever seen. We're sending cancer patients down to the United States for the first time since the NDP were in power in the 1990s. We are seeing overdose death rates, the highest they've ever been. Our public safety, our streets have never been less safe. The gun shootings, the gang wars, the drug crisis. Nothing is working in BC right now. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I want to be premier, because when we're spending that much money to get the worst results in Canada, that's not acceptable. We have to do better. And that's what our track record is, getting things better.
Any best thing about the budget you like?
The best thing was when they went ahead with something I called for 2 years ago, which was the IVF funding. Okay. So that's in vitro fertilization for young couples that can't have children. Okay. And I congratulated the government for doing that. I wish they'd put the money in this year's budget. They didn't. But next year, there's money for IVF funding. That's good.
Do you think it's going to be possible for any of the party coming in power after these elections to bring down the deficit?
Not immediately, but controlling the deficit is no different than your own family budget. You just can't spend recklessly. The NDP, what they've done, it's kind of as if they, racked up their mortgage and spent on their credit card. At some point, you have to stop doing that. You have to be responsible, just like you are in your own family household budget. And so what it means is we have to control government spending. Make sure we're responsible. Make sure that the spending is getting results. And, when they say for 7 years that they're going to build a second hospital in Surrey, they've been promising that for 7 years. And then when they make the announcement last year again that it's coming, the announcement was it's 2 years late and it's going to cost $1.2 billion more than the budget they gave us just a year ago. So that's not good spending of taxpayer money. We have to get back to being responsible about spending taxpayer money. And if we are responsible and we hold people accountable for results, not for promises, for results, then we'll have better outcomes.
Perfect. Kevin, how do you see Punjabi community? You have been working since long with the community now. It's been more than 2 decades you're working with the community. How do you see the community? Because community now started feeling left out. They have so many candidates in Victoria right now, like representing the community, but they failed. They failed in many aspects. So we have the ministers from here. How do you see this community? Because they want the hospital as soon possible, not even 1, 2, as seeing the population when compared to Vancouver or other regions. Why are they being left out? They don't have funds for the schools. Many of the school boards here in Surrey and other, they have to start double shift for the students. Yes. The students are there for their whole life studying in portables. What is the future we're bringing up to the society?
Well, this is why I think it's so important. Look, I think the South Asian community has grown tremendously, but they've also grown in really understanding politics much better. Yeah. And they are now more likely to be demanding to say, wait a minute, where are the results for Surrey? Why is it that in 2017, the NDP government said that they would get rid of all the portables in 4 years? The portables have doubled. As you say, kids are now having to go to school in shifts. They're looking at having to stack the portables on top of each other now because they're running out of space.
What are you going to do?
What we have to do is do what we were doing when I was in government, building lots of new schools, like Clayton the Secondary School, for example, was a school that I was responsible for launching and building. We need to build a lot more elementary schools, secondary schools. And we can't just keep making promises. The last budget that came out had funding for 1 new school in Surrey. And, again, this goes back to track record. When I said in 2009, I stood in Surrey in front of the Memorial Hospital, Surrey Memorial Hospital, and said, we're going to build a new $500 million tower. And 4 years later, it opened, right? That's the difference. We said we'd do it. We got it done. When I said 2 years ago, when I was at Vasaki, I said I'm going to build a second tower right next to the first one at Surrey Memorial. I said that again 6 months ago. The NDP heard me say it, and they said, uh-oh. And a month ago, they go say, oh, we're going to do it too. But there was no money in the budget. There's no plan. They've done nothing. So promises aren't good enough. We have to get people that follow through on their promises.
Last question for today, Kevin. What does BC United support in terms of policing in Surrey? Surrey Police or RCMP?
Oh, I am really concerned about this whole situation because, the government brought in a bill that said we are going to have a Surrey Police Force, okay? It has been a disaster, this whole thing, to be honest with you. It's been so mismanaged because now you've got the mayor and the council suing the province.
Yeah.
You've got the province. David Eby said, 7-8 months ago, he said, we'll give you $150 million, not a penny more.
Yeah.
Okay. Then now we're hearing, oh, well, now they're desperate. We'll give you $100 million more. What is happening? And now you've got the RCMP saying that the policing is suffering in Surrey. You've got the Surrey police saying it's not working for us either. So all sides are fighting. This is the worst situation I've ever seen, and the public is paying the price. The public is paying the price because through all this confusion and chaos, the people are suffering because we haven't got a proper police force in place yet. So what I'll tell you, what has to happen is we have to say what is happening here, and we need to very transparently show the public, here's what's happening, here's what it is going to cost, here's how we're going to fix this problem and get it done.
Perfect. We're hoping all the best for you and for your party. Looking forward to having you in the studio again in the coming days as soon as this momentum gets built, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Let's see where it goes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mr. Kim.
Thank you.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ.
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਕੇਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ BC ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਇਸ ਵਕਤ. ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ. ਆਪਣੀ ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਰੂਰ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰਿਓ. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜੋਗਰਾਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਕਾਲੂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਆ ਗਿਆ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ TV, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ.